Let's think about how you've written about how we're no longer in a knowledge economy, but a change economy. And you talk about basically where the pace of innovation isn't fast, but it's sort of compounding on top of each other. So, for everyone else who hasn't read it, can you just quickly walk us through your thesis? And then I think one question I have is specifically around what do you think fundamentally shifts when change becomes the default operating condition of the company?
Absolutely. And thank you, Tooba, for doing this. I write, it's a little bit long form. It's primarily for founders. It's on my Substack. It's not for PR. I primarily write to name my anxiety. When I'm meeting with companies and I'm observing what's going on and I can't name it, I write to name the anxiety. It's my therapy. Um, and we've always said in technology, hey, go fast, ship fast, go hard. Okay, that's great. We all should go hard and fast. Um, but I've been in software for 25 years. And for time immemorial, the way in which we've run those companies is with the assumption that market impacting substantive product innovation happens probably once a year.
Mhm.
You know, if you think about it, there's a Dreamforce, whatever, there's a HubSpot Force, there's an Outreach World, like once a year, the big announcement,
Yeah.
and sometimes twice a year. But AI, and specifically in two situations: one, the pace at which you can build;
Mhm.
two, how many less screens you have to build that no users were going to use anyways have to be built, changes
Mhm.
all that. So your products can and likely have to be significantly more impactful, I would say at least each month. And so in
Mhm.
my mind, the change economy is really like, when I think about the next era's winners, are the
Yeah.
ones that can rethink sort of the tried and true traditional SaaS playbook into one that works for this new reality. And it's kind of exciting because, like, when we work at Salesforce, no one sold software as a service. You would never sell software direct to every segment of the market. And there
Mhm.
was no playbook, there were no blogs to read, there were no conferences to attend. So we had to kind of make this shit up. And I'm watching this happen right now. And that's really what the change economy is about.
No, that's great. And like I think one of the questions I have is from the outside, it appears okay, there's a lot of iteration and change happening, but sometimes we know the actual product and engineering teams fall a little bit behind the marketing schedule per se. How do you think the product and engineering teams now need to rethink their development in order to keep pace, especially when feedback loops are like so much shorter now, but the stakes are higher in terms of if you're not delivering a lot of product fast, you're no longer
Sure.
relevant.
Well, I think what's interesting, you made a comment there, like falling behind market. And it's always been kind of the case. Marketing wants this, sales wants this, what's going on, product team. I think we have to think about it. It kind of starts with product and engineering first. The
Hmm.
really interesting thing about this agentic world, and a lot of writings on that over the last year, which is really exciting because you actually have product that's useful to
Hmm.
actually help somebody do their job. I think it starts first and foremost with product and engineering. Now, I think what is interesting is what I'm seeing in product and engineering organizations for those that are kind of at the AI native pace. And look,
Hmm.
if you're a larger corporation with a large monolithic code base, we understand you can't go on lovable.dev and just roll out code, right? And you sell to the enterprise, there's a transition. Um, and so for me, it all starts with product.
Hmm.
Um, because in my mind, you either have an agentic product that sort of immediately wows a prospect about a better way for their jobs to be done, or you don't. That's sort of the baseline.
Hmm.
And so within that, what's really interesting is, I think what I'm seeing is product in dev and success orgs, even early out of the gate, we'd be like, okay, here's your product org, here's your dev org. Okay, how does dev do QA? Okay, and then a there's a support org that kind of lives in dev, and then you move it out to success. They're all kind of becoming munged
Hmm.
into sort of one collaborative collective being. What is really interesting and exciting was the hardest thing in running startups in my past was, as you got larger, the devs got farther abstracted away from the customer problem,
Yeah.
and it was very hard to keep them motivated and around the impact. Where that is not the case of what I'm seeing in these orgs. Um, and so I think within this, there's a couple things we have to think about. One, the biggest change is we have to take the definition of done. When I started in software, there was waterfall, and then we got to agile. And then we can talk about MVP, or Amazon talked about minimum lovable product. Done is not, I delivered a feature as scoped and designed that met some quality test.
Mm-hmm.
Done is, does your product deliver on the promise of the job to be done that your customer expects for you to do for them? Either in an assistant, co-pilot assistant manner, it's helping a human being, or independently, like something replaces workflow.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that we have to define where scarcity lives now.
Yeah.
Historically, the way we've run teams is that scarcity was tech talent, dev talent.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that products spent all their time getting the stuff right. We used Jira to do t-shirt sizing and allocations and the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's not the scarcity now.
Mm-hmm.
The scarcity is the ability of the combined organization to quickly out-iterate the competition in delivering these jobs to be done, or delivering more jobs. That's it. That's your scarcity. Can these, as a collective unit, out-deliver in an iterative way the competition? So that's kind of how I think about it. I mean, do you want to maybe some follow-up questions there? Because you know me, as I warned you,
I
I can
have
go
one
on.
that's sticking to my.
I can go on for hours.
I have one that's based on what you said. There's something that stuck out to me, which is the definition of done has changed. I'm wondering, in your experience, has the expectation of what the definition of done is, has that changed for the other side, for the customers, especially enterprise customers? Do you find more enterprise customers and companies now being okay with less refined, less fully baked products?
I have seen that. I think this is a phase.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies, and Mark just went on about how is he invest in some of the AI companies and figure out if this is VIB revenue or et cetera. I think in the period of the last year, a lot of people have been exploring AI, and the models are changing so quickly that to some extent, I have seen customers sort of engaging, no way, don't fix it in the field, and sort of giving feedback, et cetera. Now, I think that will change. Here's what I think about.
Yeah.
There is a new relationship between the customer and a software provider, which is the promise in these agentic products are, I'm going to significantly help you do your job. I'm not delivering you a CRUD database with workflows and screens that you go in and enter, and then you go out and do your job elsewhere. I'm going to help you do your job, either as an assistant, or I'm going to take parts of your work away. Given that promise, I think customers are much more willing to be engaged in very specific feedback. And what is very interesting is, for years we'd be like, well, don't build exactly what the customer asks for because they're shitty product managers. What we're seeing is they're bad at understanding screens and the rest of it. But if customer says, this is my pain, can you take this pain away? Then they're actually much better product input managers than they were in the past. And I think it's really interesting to understand. Now, what I will say, though, is weird is, yes, you can ship very quick. You and I talked about this. Like, how do you not just produce a bunch of crap? I actually think the QA bar is higher. I think the done bar is higher for two reasons. One is, you're not releasing a bunch of stuff and there's some field or some object that works in some screen that somebody goes to and they kind of go, oh, that didn't work. And then you buy a session replay and then you can track it and then prioritize it as P0, P1, P2. In like an agentic assistant, the way I think about it is, I always tell my software companies when they think about AI is, assume somebody was hiring the smartest person they could ever hire, who worked at the speed of 10 people, who knew everything about your company, and never went on Glassdoor and complained about your shitty management. That's what your product's like. Now, imagine you hired that person and one day they came to work and they just started glitching. You would kind of notice that very, very quickly. And so I actually think while you can ship faster, it doesn't mean you should just ship faster. It means you should ship impactful product much faster than you have in the past. And so you and I had this conversation about Cursor,
Yep.
right? Is it a technology breakthrough or is it a taste UX breakthrough? And you pretty quickly said it's a taste UX breakthrough,
Yeah.
right? And so I think just because you can ship faster, the bar is actually higher.